Welcome to another episode of What's Going On with Shaun, a variety podcast grounded in marketing, but with an appetite for quality conversations about things that make life worth living. Time is precious, so thanks for tuning in today as we find out what's going on with Melanie Borden. Most of the guests I bring on What's Going On with Shaun are either friends, automotive industry connections, creators, marketers, salespeople, or maybe a combination of all the above. Today's guest fits that mold, but levels it up quite a bit. Melanie and I, we actually kind of weaved through various roles in the car business before landing the last roles that we had for big corporations in the car business as VPs of marketing. Melanie at LotLinks, we might talk about that a little bit, and me at Dealeron. But since then, she's done quite a bit more. She's built one of the more recognizable executive personal brand advisories in all of B2B. She's recently published her first book. By the way, congratulations. She advises an AI startup that sells back into the old territory of automotive. She's quietly building, I think, maybe something on her own. I don't know if you want to talk about that today. We've known each other for a long time, haven't talked in I don't know how long, many, many years. So I'm so excited for the conversation because this is a real one. It's what most B2B leaders get wrong. That's what we're going to talk about when they try to build authority for themselves, what the trust layer of business actually is, and where this is all heading as AI starts deciding who gets seen and who doesn't. So Melanie Borden, welcome to What's Going On with Shaun.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I want to start with before you went on this independent journey and working in the dealership world at LotLinks, take me back to that version of your journey when you walked into that role. What did you think the job was going to be and what did it turn out to be?
Specifically, the one that I had, well, I was approached through LinkedIn. I had built a very large platform for myself on LinkedIn. And one of the things that happened naturally is someone reached out from that company and it had asked me to join them. And I did. And what had started happening at that point, I was probably close to about 50,000 connections / followers on LinkedIn's platform. Okay. And something that had started happening when I became very active, because if you think back to 2020, 2021, I had crazy growth very fast. In a year, I became very visible, not just in the auto industry, but to industries that were even outside of automotive. And so one thing led to another, and people started coming to me through LinkedIn outside of automotive saying, hey, can you do for me what you did for yourself? And it was happening after I had accepted that role. And so after about, 90 days, I realized that this was an opportunity that I didn't want to miss. So I quit and I started my own business a month later. And that's the story.
Well, wow. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
I mean, personal brand building 101 for sure. And that particular time period was layoffs and instability for a lot of people. So I want to ask you something that I don't know, maybe some people would skip past, but was there even a specific moment, maybe even before that role, where you felt like that was the move? Or was it really just, LinkedIn was kind of taking off? You didn't really know what it was. Like, what made you feel like this isn't so much a side project, but it's like, this is like, it's time to make my own move?
After working in retail and really building the agency in-house, I would see what would come through the CRM and I would see the volume of leads that would come in. And when you start experiencing that and you have zero intention of generating leads the way that I was through LinkedIn, it just became so obvious to me that it was an opportunity that I had to pursue. And yes, I had just purchased my first house in 2021, right before I quit my job. I also have a whole other slew of obligations and things that I'm responsible for financially that my parents thought I was insane to quit my job to start my own business. And it took a few months to get things to kind of start cranking, but it was just so obvious to me. And it was, sometimes when there's something you want to do, you get a pull. I had this pull about LinkedIn from the very beginning in 2019, I was looking at it saying, why aren't the salespeople posting? Why aren't they posting on LinkedIn? Why don't they have, forward facing brands where customers can find them? People can book service appointments through service advisors on LinkedIn. Why don't we have that? And I just kept feeling this pull, and really the pandemic pushed me into this other stratosphere and pushed me into a place because I was afraid I was going to get laid off. And then I just got really into doing things that were scary, and the fear kind of started dissipating, and it became more of excitement for me to do things that I thought were scary.
Probably started seeing all those doors open up, and that in and of itself can be kind of scary, intimidating. The places that we haven't been to yet don't typically make us comfortable in the beginning. Got to
Yeah.
go and establish new comfort zones, you know?
Yeah,
So one
absolutely.
of the things I'm curious to ask you about as it relates to, mostly I'm curious about automotive related people, but as a former marketing leader in automotive, you know that there are others that go and they try to go do something on their own independently, but they get a lot of things wrong when they do that. Are those things that you notice? Do you even pay attention to some of those things? And if so, what would you tell somebody that's like, "Hey, I'm trying to think about this." What are the early steps that you would say if you're gonna go that direction, either don't do this or make sure you do that?
It's a great question. I wasted a lot of time on stupid things in the beginning, like not talking about my business until I had a website. I mean, you could do anything with a computer. You don't need a website. You have LinkedIn if you need it.
Yeah,
So I think sometimes
yeah.
we get caught in the minutia of those things of, I need to be doing this because this is what I was taught and this is what I know. Things have changed so much that, I mean, yes, it is great to have a website because you want to have those AI trust signals out there where people understand what you do. You're, very clear positioning. You have all the information someone would need to do research on you. But if there's something that you really want, I mean, I think just basic, having a phone and having a computer are two ways I think a lot of people forget because there's so many flashy objects around us, of things we have to have in place. I mean, because truly, you could figure out how to invoice someone if you had to. If someone's saying that they can give you money, you could figure it out quickly. So I think a lot of times people just focus on things that they don't need to focus on when, those are kind of smaller problems to have when you have the big problem of, okay, someone is sending me cash. How do I do this? Then you have something to worry about. But until then, you can kind of just go as you will and build until that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely relate to that, just getting started doing something on your own.
Yes.
It's like oftentimes people I think trivialize it and just say, just start, just start. It's like, okay, that there's truth in that. But, I like that you share that it isn't just the fact that you're starting. It's that some of those things become self-evident that you need. Like, I've got to figure out how I invoice somebody. Okay, well, that's a good problem to have. And if you were smart enough and courageous enough to start, you'll figure those things out in time. You'll also end up associated with people that might be helpful. They'll give you some tips and whatnot. I'm curious to know from your business now, when an executive or company or a founder hires you, do you find that the problem that they think they're hiring you for to solve isn't always the problem and you find something kind of underneath that? Or is it always really clear? They know exactly.
It's mixed. Sometimes they know exactly, but other times, especially if someone's hiring us to come in to help solve a problem for a team, it's not always what it is on the outside because you have multiple people involved. And when you have multiple people, then everyone has different perspectives, different experiences, different feelings about visibility. Whereas if a president comes to me and says, all right, our leadership team needs to go to market because we're launching a product in Q4 and we need everybody spun up and we need strategies, we need execution, we need engagement, we need ongoing advisory support. But two of the five people aren't on board, that can create a whole other layer of complication. So that's something that I've seen. But most of the time, people know, they'll say to me, I've been following you for 5 years and I finally made the decision to call you or, to set up this time with you because I was holding back and deferring it to my CMO, or I didn't think that I could do it, even though I just did a keynote and delivered it in front of 5,000 people. When I go to write a post on LinkedIn, I freeze. Those are the kinds of things. And I'm not a therapist by any means, but a lot of the psychology behind it is what I talk a lot about in my book because of the fact that you have so many accomplished people that get so nervous and are afraid, and they're not even calling it out as fear, but when you defer something or you're like, all right, we're just going to wait until this launches, or until I'm done with this presentation, or until I meet with the board for this. I see a lot of that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talk a lot about and share a lot about visibility, which is very much part of your journey and it definitely resonates with me. I'm obviously a big fan of helping people understand visibility and building trust, and that happens far more often and really through personal brands than we in the automotive industry, I tell people all the time, think of every single company that you think was successful. They exited, they got a huge, chunk of investment. And what was at the center of those companies? Probably a personal brand that elevated the corporate brand, and they were out in public. And Joe Chura is an example that I use a lot because he literally helped Dealer Inspire catapult above and beyond many of his competitors. And he did it by taking Rand Fishkin's Whiteboard Friday idea from Moz and started to teach. And he was a very open, available, visible leader. And so I love that you talk about that. You have now published a book, Theater of the Mind, and which is great. Congratulations on that. That's got to be cool. When did that come out?
It came out in January.
Okay.
January.
So Theater of the Mind, everybody go pick up a copy. Where do you want them to get a copy? Amazon?
Yeah, so it is available on Amazon. And actually, if you have Kindle, it's free through Kindle as well. It's available in paperback and hardcover, both.
All right, there you go, people. You can get a paperback copy, you can get a hard copy, you can get a Kindle copy for free, whatever your preference is. Now, that's not, I think, what most people would name a personal branding book. So I'm curious to know, where'd you come up with the name? Like, what's the inspiration for that and the way that you're trying to teach people through the book?
So the name Theater of the Mind was actually a term that I learned in our Monday morning leadership meetings when I was working in automotive retail, where our COO would talk about how you want the customers to feel, because theater of the mind is a concept from the 1930s. In the 1930s, obviously they didn't have what we have today, but they had radio. And so people had to sit around and listen to the Western, to the drama, to the news, and they had to imagine what was going on. So the concept, theater of the mind, for the book is a little bit abstract in the sense because people view themselves very differently than the world views them. And this is something that I've experienced myself with my own content, with my own personal brand. I'm sure you, Shaun, have also experienced this. And many others that I've worked with, we're all thinking something. And that's not always what other people are thinking, how we view ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, how our visibility looks. So that's where the term theater of the mind comes from. And the book, I talk about my own journey in building my personal brand, what it was like writing the book, because it was quite a torturous process. Through all of client work, I talk about some of the clients that I've worked with, some in the auto industry, some outside the auto industry, takeaways, lessons, strategies. It's essentially a blueprint for someone who's trying to figure out how to go to market with their personal brand and they just don't know where to start.
How long did it take you from the day you started on the book to the day it was published?
18 months. It was a very long 18 months.
Is that a long time?
It was long for me.
Is that a long time?
Felt long. It consumed my life for 18 months. So it felt like it was 18 months too long.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've never even thought about it, but I mean, it seems there are people in automotive that have put out lots of books. Oftentimes they're, we're going to tell you how to sell cars, even though they've never done it themselves, stuff like that.
So what was interesting about writing the book was just how much imposter syndrome I had while writing it. And I was not expecting to have it because I was researching imposter syndrome for the book, because so many people that interact with me present themselves that way to me and experience fear of visibility and fear of what happens with their job or in their career or employment, etc. And I started experiencing imposter syndrome myself after I had built this business for myself. I was having a really hard time with writing the content because I kept thinking to myself, who's going to read this? Why would they care? Who am I to write this book? Who am I to say these things? And I really battled with it. And I went through 3 iterations of the book. I wrote it as part of, I joined a group where it was a cohort where everyone was writing together. And so I had a group of people, almost a community of people who I was writing with. Then I got through the first version of my manuscript, which was about 30,000 words, and I hated it. So then I hired a ghostwriter to help me rewrite the book. And I hated it. I love her, but I didn't love the book. And then I just one day was doing a digital detox. I took some time off of posting myself because I felt that it was really impairing my judgment and how I was writing the book, because I felt that I was being very influenced by all the dopamine and algorithms and content. It was a lot, plus the day-to-day of business. And I ended up writing the book, finishing it in a couple months, and was very happy with the end result. And that's what I published.
That imposter syndrome thing is real. I'm sometimes astonished by the number of people in automotive that truly are imposters, but they are not experiencing the syndrome. They just keep rolling forward. It's like, who are these people? They're the ones that should have it for real, but they never do. But it is, and this is about you, not me, but I relate to that so much because the switch that I made, it's not earth changing for me to go into more of a B2B mindset. It was literally forced by a non-compete because DealerOn came after me. Somebody wanted to give me a whole bunch of money to go do another thing. And DealerOn was like, no. And we fought them for a while. And I was like, this is a waste of my life. And I wanted to do something on my own anyway. But everything that I've been building over the last 5 years, I've gone through moments where I'm like, I'm saying things that I have said internally to people for a long time where I'm coaching around marketing, but now I'm going to go say it out in the open. And now you're subject to what all the world might think. Like, where do you get off saying these things? So I totally get that. One of the lines from endorsements for the book that stuck with me that I really like is this idea that you've reframed visibility as a leadership skill, not as a marketing exercise. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind kind of walking through that a little bit. Because I think, and I know that you experience this all the time, like most executives still treat their personal brands as a marketing project that they just want to delegate to somebody. Like they don't want to be active in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when it comes to being present online and being visible, there are new rules in leadership. And if you were born before the year 2000, right? So if you're from the 1900s, like we are, there is, I just love saying that. I mean, we're not old, but I do like saying that, from the 1900s.
Oh, I'm old. This guy, I'm old.
But this idea that your work is enough, the work that you've done internally, because it's a different signal, internal and external. And not only is it leadership by being visible, because you are essentially not only mentoring and coaching others from afar, whether or not that's your intent, that is what happens. So in addition to that, you're also being categorized and you're being looked at in a certain way by humans, by people, and also by machines as well. And when you're able to do that, you're understood, you're trusted, you're discoverable. Those are the things that, and it also has a positive impact, not just on you, but also on anyone else, not just those in your company, but let's say, for example, for talent acquisition, for retention, for someone who is looking to potentially start the process of leaving where they are today and moving somewhere else in 5 to 10 years. Maybe it's after they leave their role, they're looking to get into coaching or consulting and they're building that platform. It's not just the leadership, it's also serving others, but it's also serving yourself too and setting yourself up for success for the future. And that's where the rules have changed. It's not just about our work anymore. It's about all of those things, because outside of our companies, do people know who we are? Do they know what we stand for? Do they know what we've built? Do they know what our values are? And if you can't confidently say yes to that, then you have a big opportunity in front of you of something that you can do where you can make impact. And that's what leadership is all about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I say this, I feel like, to at least one or two people every week. Your LinkedIn profile, your personal LinkedIn profile is your asset. You get to do with it what you want. If you decide to leverage it on behalf of a company that you're working for, great, good for that company. And in many cases, you should. But to ignore it is leaving a massive asset on the table for what you just said, for you personally, right? It's going to benefit anything and everything that you decide to attach your personal brand to. And so many people miss that and they talk themselves out of it, whether it's imposter syndrome or I just don't like being on camera, or I don't want to write something and then have the scrutiny of other people's opinion or whatever. And sometimes I feel like I just want to shake people and say, just get over it, right? If whatever your goal is matters, then this visibility and trust that's built primarily, and at least first and foremost, through your personal brand, you can't leave that dormant. You've got to actually lean into it. Well, I wanted to ask you, so your book kind of lays out this vulnerability is an authority enhancing tool, which I think is kind of opposite of how a lot of like senior leaders are really trained to communicate and talk. And so is there a line, like there's a like a version of vulnerability online for people that I think destroys credibility, but I'm curious to know, like, if you feel like there's a separator in that.
Well, is it vulnerability for the sake of performance? And when I say performance, for the algorithm, whatever the platform is. Because if you remember, I mean, I'm guilty of doing this myself. And like during 2020, some of the content that people were posting online was so bananas. And it had absolutely nothing to do with anything, but it was a crazy time and people were acting crazy. So crazy was the vibe of the year. And that's how people just rolled at that point. But I think that if you're being vulnerable from a place of, I messed up, this is what happened, this is what I learned, or I experienced this, and this is how if you're going through this too, you can experience it this way. If you can connect it back to what your why, your mission is, then it's different. But if you're putting on a performance for the sake of getting engagement, then that's a different story. Because I think that there's two that are very different. But I think when people hear be vulnerable, that's what they think. They think performance, because that's what it is.
Yeah, I think you're right. And they don't understand that there's like a difference between being vulnerable and oversharing, especially oversharing the crazy. That's definitely a thing with quite a few people. Let's talk a little bit about searchable leadership. I think you've built a service. So I was trying to do my homework around what you call searchable leadership, like being discoverable, not just by people, but the machines, right? The AI trust signals, all the content that's really good food for the LLMs. This is a place where, I see this horizon as well, but I think what most executives are still not seeing are how buyers and AI systems are kind of evaluating them now. What are your thoughts in this area? Talk to the audience a little bit about this searchable leadership.
Searchable leadership is one of the chapters in my book. And it's also what I've been really building on just within my own vertical that I'm running in, because a lot of times when people are talking about personal brand, they're limiting it to a platform. They're limiting it to podcasts, or they're limiting it to Instagram, or they're limiting it to TikTok, or they're limiting it to LinkedIn. But it's not just one of those. It's all of it. And it's also inbound business, it's speaking invitations, it's investor attention, it's media, it's all of the things that really make someone understand who you are, what you're strongest in, the topics that you talk about, and that you're credible, you're verifiable. And the LLMs are really speeding this up because they're looking for that information. And if they can't find the information and it's not consistent, or if it's not verified from a third party, they will skip you and they will serve up someone else. And I really believe that people are underestimating how drastic it's going to change. I mean, even just since I wrote that chapter last July of Searchable Leadership, it has evolved so fast. I mean, it's changing every single day,
Yeah.
but it's really moving quickly in the world that we're living in right now. I mean, especially for those in B2B. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all H to H. We're all humans. Everyone is interacting with each other. And the idea that someone wouldn't want to have a face behind their brand blows my mind, because it has such a positive impact on the company to have
Hmm.
forward facing presence.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people miss that. It's sitting in front of their face. And I have started to ask people who don't, and I already know that they don't have any brand visibility and trust built up in their vertical. I'll ask them just to go pick their favorite LLM. And let's just say, you're running a cybersecurity company. I'll just type in your name, Joe Smith. And what does Joe Smith know about cybersecurity? And watch what the LLM comes back with. You'll find out pretty quickly if it's pretty much nothing. And you think that, well, I know all this stuff. Well, no one else does. And then you go and say, well, who is Melanie Borden and what does she know about personal brand building? I'm sure that it will, right? Off the chart. And that is an important observation that people need to be aware of, which is a little parlays into what I want to ask you next. If a CEO, a founder, somebody in the C-suite is consuming this content and they were going to do one thing next week to be more credible, what would you tell them to do?
I would tell them to go to their LinkedIn profile, download the PDF of their profile, upload it into their LLM of choice, whether it's Perplexity, Claude, upload it in there and ask it that question. What else could I be doing to enhance my presence on LinkedIn based on my profile? And it will tell you, and it will give you an analysis of exactly what you should be doing. And you can, take the prompt further and you could say, I was looking at this person in my industry or a competitor. I like what they're doing. How can I do more towards, my own? But it's a feature. You can download anyone's PDF. It doesn't just have to be your own. Someone could download a PDF of your profile and they could upload it into Claude and say, how do I make my profile more like Shaun's? So that's something that it's an undervalued feature that I don't think enough people either know about or realize that they can do that. The other thing that I'll say, kind of leaning off of the LM conversation, is they're really great at telling you what you need to do in order to be visible in them.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Some people just don't know how to prompt like that,
Right.
right?
But you want to know something?
They just don't know.
Someone said this to me the other day. It's like having an intern that really wants a promotion.
I love that. That's great.
I know. I really love that, because it is like having an
Yeah,
intern and it wants to please you and it wants to give you everything that you need. And
yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
they do.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to actually kind of start that. I think people also don't realize that you can go into all of these LLMs and personalize them. If you start to get to a point where it's like, okay, stop telling me how awesome I am. I know I'm pretty. That's all great. Like, give me the real stuff. Push back on me. Like, I need a durable position on this thing that I'm thinking through. But you're absolutely right. I want to lean a little bit back into our old neighborhood of automotive, because I noticed you posted about it recently, but that you're in an advisory role or some kind of role, but with a company called Voice Profit AI.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. What's that company? What do they do? What's your role? What's their mission? Are they how new are they? I don't know too much about them.
Great question. So, Voice Profit AI was founded by Don Graff. He was originally based out of the Northeast. He now lives down in Florida. He's actually been working in the auto industry for almost 50 years, if you can believe it. And Voice Profit AI is a dealer built, a conversational and marketing intelligence platform that's powered by AI. And it's not just automotive, it's also RV, marine, motorcycle, and power sports. And it helps dealerships with stopping losing revenue from all the things, the missed calls, the slow responses, inconsistent follow up. And it responds to leads, books more appointments, etc. So it's more than just a CRM and more than a chat. It's all of the things, and it's powered by AI.
It sounds like a very robust communication system of some sort, which is huge when it comes to process. I've said this for a long time. I talk to all my BDC friends and companies that are kind of an outsourced style BDC. Dealers have been addicted to leads. I'm one of the people in the early days that's responsible for doing that, selling lots and lots of leads. Microsoft CarPoint leads was where I got into this whole thing. And I kind of feel bad about it now because dealers didn't get addicted to process. And so it sounds like this company might be one that people would want to look at if it's like, listen, we got a lot of leads, we got a lot of communication to handle. And that's just maybe one point, but it sounds like what they're doing would be definitely a solution for people in that in that territory.
Yes, definitely. And Don has such immense background in the industry. And he's really worked on every single side of the business, whether he worked in retail, which he did. He also worked as a vendor, he's worked as a supplier, he's worked for the manufacturer. So he is a very unique, interesting person in the business. And he just has a totally different viewpoint, a totally different lens than I would say an average operator, specifically with an AI company. So it's been a lot of fun, and I work with Don not only on his visibility but also on voice profits as well as an advisor.
Nice. Nice. I mentioned this previously. I did go to NADA this year. I have some content. I think maybe it's next week, a little video clip where I talk about something that I think everybody that went noticed. It felt like 90% of the vendors had just kind of slapped an AI sticker on their logo or on their booth somewhere, like everybody's that. So it's always refreshing to hear of companies that are like, no, this is kind of where we started natively because there's just too much confusion in the dealer marketplace of like, okay, but you guys weren't AI before, and I've been working with you for 10 years, and now you're AI or you're an AI company. Oftentimes, most of the time, I lean pretty sympathetic towards helping dealers navigate the choppy, muddy waters of what vendors are telling them because it never seems to be particularly honest. I want to ask you, and I don't know how much if you or you want to talk about it, but it feels like maybe you're also maybe building something else. I don't know if there's another project for you in the AI world, and we do not have to talk about it. We can just cut it right out of here. But I wanted to give you the opportunity in case it's like, hey, there's some things that I'm talking about, and even if it's in early stages, where do you want to go on that, or do you not want to go anywhere?
Yeah, I can talk about it. So I am actually in the process right now of building an AI coaching app for a personal brand.
Nice.
Yes. And it is actually going
That's
to
awesome.
be announced in June. So I've haven't been talking about it because I've been kind of busy working on it, which is very common that, I hear this all the time from people. I'm not talking about it because I'm busy working in it, but that is something that I'm working on. And there's going to be a launch at the end of June for it.
Awesome. That's great. That's exciting. I'm excited for you. And it sounds like you're not only building something like that, which is great for your business, but you're involved in another company that does some of those things for dealers. It's exciting. I'm guessing that helps you feel, I don't know, probably like it just charges you in all the best ways to be the kind of the best version of yourself and, do the things that you do in the market.
It's interesting because I've been trying to figure out for the last year or so how to differentiate myself in a space that's very crowded. And how am I
Hmm.
unique? What are the things that I can bring to the table that are different more than me just saying, well, I'm different because of X, Y, and Z. So to me, writing a book was one of those differentiators. Having a keynote, which I just built, was a differentiator. Being able to have an app that ties back to my work, that's a differentiator. And for me, I'm constantly trying to evolve and change and just do things that I'm watching that others are also doing. So yeah, to answer your question, absolutely. I love, I also am an advisor for another AI startup. And one of the things that I have learned, just watching other founders is everyone is trying to survive. And everyone is trying to not only survive, but also help their end user. And I think that when someone is really focused on what the experience is going to be for someone else and how it's going to help them and how it's going to help grow their business, it's a different type of conversation than, just revenue. It's something that helps you also feel good about what you're doing too.
I think that's so important too. Okay, the last one I have for you is just go to the future, 2, maybe 3 years out. A lot of people don't always understand that what you're talking about isn't the overnight sensation. Like building out your personal brand doesn't mean, hey, you're going to have 200 leads tomorrow morning or whatever they have in their mind. But let's go 2 years out, the leader who does build authority and the most pipeline and defensibility in wherever they are within B2B. What does that person look like? And what does that person do that most people don't do?
So that person has access and also more experience based on their stronger visibility. So that might be a board seat, that might be a speaking invitation, that could be investor attention, that could be going on podcasts and doing media, creating, solidifying partnerships, bringing in more revenue, or having choices of what they want to do and where they want to go, or potentially having a sale for what they're doing.
Melanie, thank you so much for doing this. When people want to connect with you, where do you like for them to connect with you best? Is it LinkedIn or elsewhere?
Definitely LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Melanie Borden. I also have my website, which is my company website for the Borden Group, which is humantobrand.com, and then melanieborden.com, which is actually launching next week. So either one.
Okay, awesome. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the book is Theater of the Mind. It's on Amazon. We talked about it. You can get the paper, you can get the hardbound copy. You can also get it for free on Kindle for all you cheapies out there. No, just kidding. Like, go buy a copy. Come on. Melanie's being too nice, not trying to tell you guys to buy a copy, but she's being very gracious and telling you that you can have it free if you're a Kindle user. We will continue to champion your efforts. As she mentioned, her firm is called the Borden Group. The site is human to brand, no numbers. It's humantobrand.com. And you'll find her all over LinkedIn. If you're not already following her there, that's a great place to get her insights, her very unique point of view, which, given that we've just spent a whole bunch of time talking about that, that's probably a great place for you to continue conversation and consuming content that she puts out there. If something we talked about kind of hits, do me a favor, share it, send it to somebody that needs to hear about it, because maybe Melanie's going to make the biggest difference that you've seen in years. There are a lot of people in the C-suite that need to know more about what she talks about on a daily basis. And so, to the audience, now you know what's going on with Melanie Borden. Thanks, Melanie.